Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Digital Africa. My name is Robin Raskin. I've been with you for the past 2 years, and unfortunately, this year I couldn't be there in person. So we're doing the next best thing, which is me talking to you from New York on this video. I want my comments to be brief, but I want to point you towards a direction of what's happening this year that I believe Africans should be paying attention to. So in addition to your concentration on the Internet of Things, I want to talk for a minute on the 5 tech trends that I think will affect Africa the most this year. Those are robots, digital health, wearables, virtual reality, and machine learning. But first, let's put this in perspective. And I'm going to talk about the U.S. for a minute. Not too long ago, the U.S. was a 90% based agricultural society. And we made the shift to become a manufacturing society, where only about 2% of our country is now involved in the business of agriculture. Fast forward, and we're transitioning again from a manufacturing society to an information society. The transition this time involves the digitization of everything, and jobs will change just like they changed from agriculture to manufacturing. The internet economy requires the same shift as we shifted from farmers to manufacturers. New skills, new jobs, and new education. And the same goes for Africa. But in some ways, you have a very unique advantage. And I call it sort of skipping past jail. You can skip past the legacy that so many countries have. You've got a young population. You've got vast amounts of land and resources. You don't have all of the, I'll say, baggage, the connectivity baggage, the old phone lines that we have in this country that we've had to transcend. The hotbed of activity now is in your startup areas. Your virtual currency and digital currencies and payment schemes are moving very quickly, and you are migrating as a country from a dependence on oil and mining to an information economy. Again, one where you're just beginning to tap into the alternative energy capabilities of the country. So my overall message to you is it's good for Africa right now. It's a really good time to skip the legacy that some other countries have, like the U.S., and to move right into a very full digital economy. And to do that, I think that what you're trying to do in these sessions is focus on your own identity. What is the African information economy identity about? You are an opportunity for the rest of the world to come and work on a global economy, and that should not be underestimated. So let's go on to our first topic, which is robots. What can robots do for us? Basically, think about them as computers walking around in anthropomorphic bodies that can move in a human way, and sensors that can sense and report on the outside world. So what can they do? They can do some of the dangerous jobs and the repetitive jobs that make up any country's workforce. It's also been shown that when a robot is put to work, the quality assurance, and whether they're building a motor or whether they're building some other part, the quality assurance is much higher. And then there are robots as companions that we're starting to see are really useful. So I'm going to look at 3 robot companions first. On your left, you see Budgie. Budgie is a helper for when you go to the market, when you have to carry heavy things. Budgie follows you around because you're wearing a GPS bracelet that's constantly signaling to Budgie to come along. You put things in the basket. In some cases, the basket will have the ability to scan prices and check you out, like in a supermarket. So Budgie becomes a companion, in particular for people who can't carry heavy loads. To the right of Budgie, you see Kawa Robot. Kawa Robot is a smart suitcase. It looks like a suitcase, but it's got a battery pack in it and a robot brain. And again, you wear a band so that the suitcase can track you. Whether you're traveling through airports or streets, your suitcase is self-propelling its way along. And finally, on the bottom corner, I have a cute little guy named Mabu. Mabu was designed to inform the elderly and be a companion to them, whether they've time to take a pill prescription, time to have a more nutritious lunch, time to talk about the weather, or time to talk to families. Mabu is there to help a person who may be physically isolated connect to the rest of the world and offer them the guidance that they need. So just three examples. You're going to see lots of these. The technology is really, really ripe this year. And you're going to see a lot of what I call general purpose robots, not built for any specific reason, become more productive too. We just saw this one in Asia. It's called SlamTech. SlamTech has the body of a general purpose robot. It can geolocate, it can move, but you can put different tops on it to do different things. So imagine I put the top on it that I want to do a LiDAR type autonomous movement, or I want it to become a telepresence robot, or I want it to scan something. Just three examples of one robot base with three tops. And I think we're going to see a lot of those used in business settings to avoid the expense of building a single purpose robot for each case. Robots, of course, are very, very closely tied to drones. Drones basically are robots that can fly in the air, often have cameras with them. And if you think about Africa and its readiness for drones, think about agriculture, how a drone can fly over the terrain and decide, is it getting the right amount of water? Is it getting the right amount of fertilizer? Is it producing to the maximum? In the military, we know that drones can go where people cannot go. We know that delivery to remote locations will be easier. You see Amazon today working on drone delivery, but drone delivery in a country like Africa with its massive land will be hugely helpful. And of course, because of the camera, drones are constantly collecting information. Robots and drones together are taking the world by storm. And probably the last thing that I'll say about robots is how important they are in education. They've captured kids' attention, and kids love programming robots. You see on the screen Dot and Dash. These are two robots from Wonder Play that teach kids programming by having them move robots around, playing games with them. As a matter of fact, I came back from Shanghai, where we did a robot fashion show showcasing the new robots, and you can see that people love robots. They're celebrities. Kids love robots. So I encourage you to use inexpensive robots in any way you can to cultivate the next generation of kid programmers. Moving on to digital health. I want to talk about digital health in three distinct areas. The first one being the telepart. The fact that the doctor can't always be there every time you need them. But what happens with digital health is that you've got continual monitoring of conditions, whether it's prenatal, whether it's aging, and you've got remote diagnostics looking at this. So the doctor doesn't need to know every time you've checked your heart rate, but what the doctor gets notified is if there's a spike in heart rate. So it's going to be hugely helpful to have these remote sensing, especially a continent like Africa with your geographical spaciousness. You're also seeing, as evidenced by this photo, the world of shrinking digital monitoring. So banded size adhesive sensors that can track what you're doing make it really a whole different ballgame. The second thing digital health can do is track and take care of the safety issues. So if you have an older person at home, you can detect a fall. You can geolocate where they are constantly. You can check their proximity or turn on a device or the lights in their house as they're walking in. You're going to talk a lot about the Internet of Things at your sessions, so I'll leave it at that. But know that tracking and safety are hugely important, especially with our two populations of aging folks and kids. Monitoring the environment, it's the same principle. There are ways to look at what's healthy for us. What is our air pollution like today? What is our water like today? Is it safe to drink? What is in our food? Is it something that's going to hurt us? So we have mass spectrometers now that used to be hugely expensive devices used in science lab, shrinking down to pocket size to tell you what your food is comprised of. Whether you have food allergies, whether you're a healthy person just by breath detection. These are just a few things that are on the market now, and thanks to sensors and the cloud and the internet really making a big difference. Early detection, can't say enough about this, and retraining habits. So whether you're testing for glaucoma or macular degeneration, whether you're looking at a pregnant person during the course of their prenatal care, delivering tips based on the feedback that you get, whether you're rewarding kids by playing a game for brushing their teeth. These are the kinds of behaviors that we can start to change in our populations with digital health devices. Digital health totally tied in to wearables. We've talked about wearables over the years. We've talked about as devices shrink in size, as the miniaturization happens and you wear them closer to your body, they are less obtrusive. You don't have to sit down at a laptop to do something. You are continually monitoring your activity. Closer to your body, the more able you are to treat it as a natural extension of your body and let it do the work for you. This whole idea of unseen but aware devices are going to be huge, and I'll switch from health to wearable payments for a minute. The forecast is for $500 billion worth of wearable payment made in by 2020. That means rings, that means glasses, that means clothing, it means your refrigerator buying your groceries for you. We're leading to the Internet of Things, where all things are digital and all things can not just interact with you, but with each other. So again, internet, sensors, the cloud, these components stay the same, the form factor changes. And I think the new industry that is really ripe this year, finally, is virtual and augmented reality. And that means a lot of news. New ways to create content and make movies, new ways to distribute those things, new channels, new ways to train and educate people, and new accessibility tools for anybody who needs help seeing, hearing this virtual world, and adding information and creating immersive experiences is huge. I like to think about this year as the year when a piece of cardboard changed the whole conversation. This is Google Cardboard. You just has two lenses in it. You slip your mobile device in it. You fold up the cardboard, and immediately you are transported to immersive worlds. Whether I'm putting myself in a refugee's shoes, whether I'm looking at the human body or a chemical molecule, I am understanding by being in it. And this costs about $1. So yes, you have Oculus, and yes, you have a HTC Vive and a lot of virtual reality gear coming out, but children can have this wonderful experience for about $1 that's completely immersive and can pave the way for what will be. And finally, my last point, and probably the most profound point, is machine learning. What's machine learning? It's not just that you are now teaching the computer, because we've taught the computer, this is my spreadsheet and this is my document, but when the machine is smart enough to infer from what it knows and make new inferences and new decisions based on input, things are going to change in a really fundamental way. And I'm going to talk about IBM Watson for a moment and cognitive computing. So imagine we take all the medical information that's out there in the world and we feed it to Watson, like for breakfast. Now imagine that Watson can now start to make inferences. So when it says, gee, I've got a rash and my eyes hurt and I've got a fever, it can look through its database, put things together, and say, oh, this must be the disease. And the next time it sees that disease, it can create, it now knows and can identify that disease. So at that point, the systems are making some decisions based on the information that we have given it, building on information in their knowledge base, and things are going to get incredibly amazing and complicated. In every business of yours, we have data that sits there. It's not just digital health data, it's data about what you sell, what you do. We're not mining that data for enough information, and that will change. And it's such a profoundly scary thing and such a big change that actually Elon Musk has an AI gym now where he is teaching, not gymnasts, but programmers of robots to bring out the best behaviors in their robots. So how can you help a robot make a good inference? How can you help them detect a student's performance based on all other students' performance and find out where they're going to fail? These are the questions that we're going to be asking as Watson, as other cognitive, Wolfram is another company to watch, as these companies look across all the data that we have coming in and do the heavy work of analysis and inference for us. And that sort of sets you up to talk about the Internet of Things and the digitization of everything. I feel like we're kind of living in the sci-fi world that we all thought about when we were kids. But again, I think it's really a huge opportunity for Africa because of a number of reasons to take these trends and really embrace them. I wish you good luck at your conference, and I hope to be with you again next year.